Step into a British home in the swinging 60s, where wallpaper curled at the edges, the kettle never stopped whistling, and the telly had just 3 channels. The air smelled of baked beans, coal fires, and damp coats hung by the door. Every kid knew the rules, even when unspoken. From the sound of the ice cream van to the scolding tone of Mum calling from the kitchen, certain phrases stuck like glue to memory. Some made us feel safe, others made us roll our eyes, but all of them defined the rhythm of daily life. Here are 12 things every British child heard at home in the unforgettable 1960s. The cold British air didn't forgive forgetfulness, and if you left the door open, you knew what was coming. Were you born in a barn? Wasn't a question. It was a sharp rebuke wrapped in humour. It echoed through small hallways and drafty kitchens with a mix of irritation and affection. This phrase wasn't just about a door, it was about order, respect, and being part of something bigger than yourself. In homes where energy was precious and warmth didn't come cheap, leaving a door open was more than careless, it was disruptive. Mothers said it with a raised eyebrow, dads muttered it with mock sternness. Children rolled their eyes but learned quickly. You closed the door behind you, no questions asked. It became a rite of passage, a sign you were growing up and paying attention. Even decades later, those 6 words can spark a grin. They capture the rhythm of discipline and the soft edges of family rules in 1960s Britain, where every phrase had a purpose and a personality. In 1960s Britain, the boiling kettle was a daily ritual. "Tea's ready! Come and sit!" wasn't just about food, it was a cultural pause filled with bread, jam, and mugs of hot tea. No one questioned it. Tea brought the family together. Hands washed, the wireless turned down, plates quietly set. It was structure and comfort in a changing world. Before smartphones or fast food, tea was sacred. It was a time to check in, share glances, and feel seen and connected. A small act that held the household together. That simple call from the kitchen still echoes today. It signified warmth, routine, and a sense of belonging. Just a table, a teapot, and the quiet magic of being home. Before streaming or TV, there was the wireless. Turn that transistor to the wireless was more than a command. It was a daily ritual connecting homes to news, cricket scores, and the BBC's calm authority. The portable transistor changed everything. Now sound moved freely, from kitchen to shed, bringing the Beatles' football results or the Archers into every corner of the house. Children grew up with its gentle hum, a symbol of security and knowledge. Parents trusted the wireless, not flashy but dependable. It didn't entertain, it informed and grounded. In a slower world, the wireless was a lifeline to the outside. That familiar phrase wasn't just about static, it was an invitation to connect, turning sound into a national heartbeat. Freedom was real, but it had limits. Children played in the streets until the sun dipped behind the rooftops, but be home before curfew rang louder than any bell. It was a line drawn not by law, but by love and fear. Parents didn't always explain why, but kids knew curfew mattered. It meant safety, family, and not pushing luck. If you missed it, you'd hear more than the front gate slam. The scolding might be quiet, but the message was always clear. The streets felt different after dark. Lamp posts flickered, shops shuttered, and the hum of radios replaced laughter outside. Being home on time became a sign of trust and a way to keep it. That short command became a compass. It told kids when to stop running, when to start walking home. In its simplicity, it wrapped care, control, and quiet comfort all in one sentence. There was no negotiation when it came to mealtime manners. Mind your manners at the table was a phrase etched into daily life. often said before the first bite even touched your lips. British dining rooms became classrooms of etiquette. No elbows on the table. Don't speak with your mouth full. Say please when you ask, and always say thank you. These weren't suggestions, they were family law, passed from generation to generation. Even a smirk could get you a stern glance. The rules weren't about being posh, they were about respect. Everyone had a place, and that place came with expectations. Children learned to listen, to wait, to speak kindly. And in that structure, they found a kind of safety. It wasn't always easy, especially with siblings or peas you didn't want to eat. But the phrase lingered in every mealtime silence. It shaped how children carried themselves, both at home and beyond. Evenings had a rhythm, and the 9 o'clock news was sacred. Wait until after the news meant everything stopped, games, chatter, and even laughter. The voice of the BBC cut through the home like a church bell commanding attention. This wasn't just about news, it was about reverence. The news anchor's tone, calm and deliberate, set the mood in every living room. Parents turned the dial up and leaned in. Children were expected to stay quiet, or even better, go get ready for bed. In a world where world events weren't a click away, the news was an event in itself. It brought the outside in, often with gravity, sometimes with pride. It framed the day and grounded families in reality. That phrase wasn't harsh. It was routine, and behind it lived a deeper lesson, that some things deserve your attention, your silence, your respect. Even now, its echo brings back the stillness of those evenings. Rain in Britain didn't ask permission, it simply arrived. Fetch the umbrella and mind the rain was more than advice. It was a daily chorus. Mothers shouted it from behind half-open doors, already holding a dripping raincoat or mending yesterday's soggy shoes. The umbrella wasn't just a tool, it was a symbol of preparedness, a cultural shield. Children were expected to remember it, like they remembered their lunch. Forget it once, and you'd never hear the end of it. The skies shifted in minutes. Sunshine could vanish before you'd cross the street, and a downpour might follow. That phrase taught caution without panic, and respect for nature's whims. It was part of the rhythm of dressing, leaving, returning. It wasn't dramatic, it was British life. That grey drizzle, those wool socks drying by the fire, and the umbrella opened just in time. Mind the rain meant, in a quiet way, mind yourself. There was no need to explain who they were. Shall I put on Morecambe and Wise meant joy, togetherness, and at least half an hour of pure laughter. These two comedians were household names, their timing and charm unmatched. The living room would fill with their voices, sharp, warm, endlessly quotable. Even grandparents chuckled at the same jokes their grandkids loved. Comedy crossed generations back then, and this duo stitched everyone together. Television in the 60s was limited, which made it sacred. Fewer choices meant deeper loyalty, and few shows held such a place in the heart. That question wasn't really a question, it was a family plan. It's impossible to hear that phrase now and not smile. It conjures crackling screens, knitted cardigans, and a room glowing with warmth. They weren't just entertainers, they were part of the family. What show made your whole family laugh? Manners weren't optional, they were a badge of upbringing. Don't forget to say, "Thank you" was repeated like a sacred rule, from dinner tables to post offices, from school gates to neighbourly favours. Politeness shaped the British identity. Children were taught to express gratitude before they even understood what it meant. Over time, it became reflex, a small phrase carrying big meaning. It wasn't just about being nice, it was about being proper. Saying thank you wasn't dramatic or loud, it was quiet, simple and constant. Whether accepting sweets or leaving the dinner table, that phrase stitched invisible threads of respect through everyday life. And though children sometimes muttered it under their breath, they never forgot it. It stayed with them. Even now, decades later, it slips out effortlessly, still holding weight. Though Queen Elizabeth's coronation occurred in 1953, its cultural ripples spread well into the 60s. Did you hear the coronation song? Wasn't a daily phrase, but when spoken, it carried ceremony and awe. The music had grandeur, pride, and a sense of national identity. Recordings played on crackly radios, and parents relived that moment as if it had just happened. It was the sound of Britain stepping into a new era. Children heard stories of the golden coach, the waving crowds, the televised event that made history. Even if they weren't alive in 53, they felt part of that grand moment through song and storytelling. The coronation song was more than melody. It was memory. It connected generations and gave kids a taste of historical wonder. It reminded them they were growing up in a country that had changed, but still remembered. There were no debates, no negotiations. When you heard, "Lights out," it's bedtime, the day ended, full stop. Whether you were in the middle of a comic or whispering with your sibling, it meant quiet. British households ran on routines and sleep was non-negotiable. Curtains were drawn, the hall lights stayed dim, and parents moved quietly down the corridor. Children tucked in with flannel pajamas and thick wool blankets, listening to the rain or a distant dog bark. That phrase was both command and comfort. It told children that the day was done, and the world outside would wait until morning. In that final flick of the switch, safety hummed. Even today, those 4 words can bring back the warmth of a tucked-in sheet and the feeling of being looked after. It wasn't just bedtime, it was a moment of peace. When something broke, it wasn't replaced, it was fixed. "I'll mend that for you later," was the quiet promise of every British mum, said while picking up a torn teddy or a school jumper with a hole at the elbow. Thread, buttons and fabric scraps lived in tins on kitchen shelves. Fixing things was part of the rhythm of care, not a chore. Each stitch said, "I see you, I've got this." It was love, done patiently. Children learned that things weren't disposable. Toys, clothes, even books deserved a second chance. And waiting for that later wasn't a burden. It was part of trusting the slow, gentle hands of someone who always came through. That phrase isn't often heard now, but in memory, it still whispers from warm kitchens and lamp-lit corners. It reminds us that care wasn't loud, but it was always there. 12 simple phrases. 12 windows into a time when life moved slower, homes were tighter, and childhood was shaped by quiet discipline and warm rituals. Each line we've revisited wasn't just something said, it was something felt, remembered and passed on. They're echoes of a Britain that no longer exists, but still lives in memory. So if just one of these phrases made your heart skip, or your lips curl into a smile, subscribe and step back in time with us again. There's more waiting behind every closed door, every radio click, every cup of tea.